Hey, what's up, ghouls and gals? We are literally like 45 minutes away from starting our film fest, but I needed to come and do my November, everything I watched in November, because we ended up watching 51 movies last month, and I feel like we're gonna have the same this month with our film fest. We're watching 33 films in 5 days for our film festival, and I can just tell this month alone in December, it's gonna be out of control. So we have to catch up on everything I watched and logged in the month of November on Letterboxd. You can always follow me there. It is linked down below with all of my other links if you'd like to see any more of me or support the channel any further. I feel all jumbled because I've been planning this since October. I got scheduled to work tomorrow, unfortunately, even though I booked it off. So we have to work around my schedule change for this film fest. So I am in scramble time. So like I said, we watched 51 movies in November. I am going to skip over anything I've already talked about, and I'm going to skip over anything that's really not horror. All right, beginning on November 1st, we watched Ginger Snaps 2, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really great continuation of the story. I'm not sure how I feel about 3. We've not watched it, but I just picked it up on DVD a little while ago. And it feels like a completely, a departure, I think, from the story. But who knows? I'll have to give it a try. Anyways, moving on, we watched, there is a show, I want to say it's on Hulu, but I'll correct myself in text. But the Addams Family, who I've ranted and raved about, did an episode for the show Tales from the Void. So we had to check that out. It's called Plastic Smile. And for an hour episode, or what felt like a standalone episode for an anthology show, it is a really strong entry. And it feels another thing that felt like a complete departure from what the directors normally do. And I loved it. Okay, on the 2nd, we started it with The House is October Built, which I've already talked about, a fantastic found footage film. Moving on to Nerve, a film I have not seen, but we did just pick it up on Blu-ray, so we had to watch. I will be talking about this in an upcoming video, and I bet you can guess what the theme will be for that one, so we'll skip that. And then on the 3rd, we watched Live Scream, which I've actually talked about twice on this channel now. So it wasn't great for someone who doesn't like streaming or gaming in general. Definitely not a film for me, but if that's something you're into, check it out. It's under 80 minutes. On the 3rd, we also watched MadS, which was honestly such a fantastic film. If you like movies that are very in your face, very visceral, very fast paced, and very almost realistic at the same time, this one, it's for you. It's a very good film. The one take shot of it all just makes the frenetic energy of the film feel so much more alive and real, and it was really good. On the 6th, we watched A Different Man, and I'm not really a Sebastian Stan fan, but let me tell you, Adam Pearson in this film, who you guys probably know from Under the Skin, he's very recognizable, absolutely blew me away in this film. His energy that he brought to this was so good. I could have watched just him in this film for more hours. I really enjoyed his performance. But if you don't know, it's a story about a man who has an issue. I don't want to spoil anything, but he undergoes a procedure where he wants to correct his issue, and he thinks it's gonna make him a better actor, and it's gonna make him a better person and get more roles. But little does he know that it's just he's not likable. And that's the problem. So then you have Adam Pearson's character, who looks how Sebastian Stan did before his surgery. get the notoriety and get the roles and get everything. And it's such a good story about how even you can like change your appearance, you can change everything about you on the outside, but if you are a shitty person on the inside, like, you're not gonna get what you want. I feel like that's what I got from it. Anyways, moving on to Ghost Game, which is a movie I've already talked about. This has a fantastic cameo from Dr. Rebecca McKendry, one of my favorite people on the whole planet. And this is about the whole frogging craze of people like trying to stay undetected in someone else's home. This movie was scary to me. There is one specific character in this movie that like ruined the whole it made me so scared. So check it out. I recommend it. On the 8th, we watched Black Cab. And I'm just gonna spoil this for you right now. This is in my worst horror movies of the year list, so we'll move on. Also on the 8th, we watched the documentary, The J Horror Virus. You'll see we caught up with a lot of The Grudge in November, and you guys have already heard me like trauma dump about The Grudge, but I feel like this is where it all like started, where Alex was like, okay, I can see how scared you are, like we're gonna have to rectify this, and I feel like I'm only more scared now. But the J Horror Virus really did open our eyes to so many other movies that we were missing out on and that we want to catch up on now, and it's a really great doc. But moving on, we checked out Pieces, something that we actually hadn't seen. You know what? The opening scene is absolutely unhinged, and I feel like it sets the tone for the whole film. Another one where I'm just trying to catch up on all of like the 80s movies, horror movies that I've missed, because I just love the 80s. Like the 80s for horror is my favorite decade of horror, I would say, probably. So do a lot of catching up there. On the 9th, we watched a mockumentary called 15 Things You Didn't Know About Bigfoot. I was going to actually open our film fest with this, and I'm glad that I didn't, because it would have felt so disjointed, and it was all right. It was a fun afternoon watch, but that's all it was. Also on the 9th, we watched Vampiros Lesbos, which... not bad. And then we followed that up with a film called Somewhere Quiet. This film was really good, but it's really upsetting. Very upsetting. And like some of the actors in this I'm gonna be talking about in an upcoming video, but it is just, if you guys have seen Soft and Quiet, I feel like this would be a good film to watch before Soft and Quiet as a double feature, because it's just gonna build the dread. On the 9th, we also watched Freeway 2, Confessions of a Trick Baby, starring Natasha Lyonne. No one told me, not a single person was like, hey Ashley, I just want to let you know that in Freeway 2, there's gonna be a whole lot of puke. And like, not even like a good, it's fine, we can like skip it. There's like the whole first third of the movie is just girls making themselves throw up, and I couldn't handle it. Anyways, after that it got better, but oh god, it was rough. But moving on to the 10th, we watched My Old Ass, which is not a horror movie, so we'll just kind of move on, but know that I really enjoyed it. On the 13th, though, we watched The Nude Vampire. It was not good. Really, the dubbing on this was, oh my god, it was unhinged. And then moving on to Ju-on, The Grudge, where my whole life came crumbling down. And I'm just gonna kind of skip over these because I've talked about in like ad nauseum of how scared I am of Kyoko in The Grudge. But we watched Ju-on, The Grudge, and then followed that up on the 16th with a film called Filth. This was a recommendation from Darren Van Dam over on Flick Connection. We love his recs, so we always take his recs. And this one is a James McAvoy starring film where he is just an absolute disgusting dirtbag. And you know what? I liked it. Moving on to the 18th, we watched Tenants, which I did talk about in my apartment horror video. And after that, the director reached out to see if I wanted a screener. And through him, thank you so much, Buzz, we were able to watch the film. And I enjoyed it. It was a really solid, dramatic horror movie, and like don't go into Tenants thinking it's going to be like a true to horror anthology. It is very, very dramatic. It's a drama horror, and it is really heartbreaking at the end. Moving on to Smile 2, which in hindsight I feel like I can give it a higher rating. I did not like Smile 1. I was a hater of Smile 1 for a long time. I just didn't know. I didn't know what the story was trying to give me, and I feel like in sitting with it, I can rate part 1 a little higher as well. I really, aside from the runtime, I do not feel like Smile 2 deserved the runtime. But what it gave us and what it delivered, I felt gaslit the whole movie. I was pissed off. By the time we got to the end of it, I was honestly mad. I felt gaslit. And honestly, it was good. I enjoyed the effects were absolutely solid. You guys know I love good special effects that are practical, great practical effects. This one has what looks like a mixture of really seamless CGI blended with some really great practical effects, and I loved it. So on the 20th, we watched Defying Gravity, The Curtain Rises on Wicked, which was a special about Wicked to prepare to go see Wicked, which we have not seen yet because I got COVID immediately, like as we were preparing to go see the movie. Anyways, so we watched that, and then we watched on the 20th Green Day 20 Years of American Idiot, a little doc about the whole album and the making of the album and performing the album. And as someone who grew up with that being one of the formative albums of my life, I really enjoyed revisiting it through this doc. On the 22nd, it was my birthday, and all I wanted to do was watch Napoleon Dynamite. So we did. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And then we followed that up with the 2004 Grudge, because I had to face my fears. And then on the 23rd, we watched Until the Light Takes Us, which was the documentary on pretty much all of the guys behind, like, if you guys have seen Lords of Chaos, it's the whole story of like what happened there. And I feel like this should have been like, someone should have told me to watch this before I watched Lords of Chaos, because I really enjoyed this doc. All right, we are already on the 23rd, but there's still so many movies because this is about the time that we got COVID. So we followed that doc up with Blair Witch from 2016, which I absolutely hated. That felt like a mockery of the original Blair Witch. I was pissed off at the end of that one, having to hear my name screamed a million times. Let me know if that bothers you. I don't feel like I ever hear Ashley too much in horror movies, but that really bothered me, hearing my name just, Ashley! Like, shut the fuck up. I'm right here. You know? Let me know if you ever hear your name in a movie and it like irks your nerves. But anyways, after that, we watched the remake of Street Trash. And as a big fan of the original Street Trash, I loved this. This had me in tears by the end because I loved it so much. I loved the characters. I loved the world they created. I loved that they took it and didn't neuter it and Americanize it, and they kept it in South Africa. They kept it dirty, grimy, and gross, and I loved Street Trash. If you're gonna check out any remake, check out Street Trash. It is disgusting. It is so full balls to the wall disgusting, but it is so fun. And there's a little guy in this film, and you guys probably know by now that I love little creatures in films, and there's a little like puppet guy in this film, and I loved him. On the 24th, we watched Addicted to Fresno. This was a suggestion from an Instagram follower. I forget what movie it was that I recommended. I think it was An Evening with Beverly Loughlin, and someone recommended this after I had recommended that, and said if I liked the Jim Hosking style of film, that I would probably like Addicted to Fresno. And you know what? I did. It was so silly. It was so stupid. Natasha Lyonne, Aubrey Plaza, let's go. On the 24th, though, we watched Midori, which, if you know, it is like a band anime film. That was a hard one to get through. That one has a lot of stuff that, like, you probably don't even want to see or talk about, so I'm gonna move on. We rewatched Fear.com, which did not hold up at all. And then on the 25th, we watched Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy, which I have been de-influenced. I have fully been de-influenced. I do not need excess. I feel like I already shop secondhand as it is all the time, and this has just de-influenced me even more. On the 25th after that, though, we watched Dark City, okay? Hear me out. I've had this film in my collection for so many years. I've just always looked at the case. There's no actors like listed on it. There's just this ominous photo, and I've always been fascinated by it. So we finally sat down to watch Dark City, and Jennifer Connelly, Kiefer Sutherland, like, this was so good. I am not necessarily, I don't love a sci-fi, but this really did keep my attention for the whole runtime. It was very good. After that, we watched Brian De Palma's Femme Fatale with Rebecca Romaine, and I mean, it was hot. It was hot, it was erotic, and he loves a double, a body double. On the 26th, we woke up. This is when we were really in the thick of being sick, but we woke up and watched Home Alone. I had only ever seen it one other time, and I kind of hated it, but I feel like I was just a miserable Grinch 10 years ago, and rewatching it now, like, I was an absolute blubbering mess by the end of it. I was just bawling my eyes out. I loved it. It felt so good. It was such a feel-good film. I loved it. But Joe Pesci, count your days, okay? He calls Kevin a creepy little guy. Joe Pesci, you're the creepy little guy. You ever hear his song, Wise Guy? But we followed that up with Basket Case. Just love Frank Henenlotter. You'll see a lot of Henenlotter coming up. Belial is just talk about creepy little guys. But after seeing Joe Pesci in Home Alone, Alex is like, you've never seen Goodfellas. We're home. We're watching Goodfellas. So we did, and I'm happy we did, because that's another film that I had never seen. But I am so happy that we watched the entirety of The Sopranos last year, because seeing all of my favorite faces in Goodfellas, even if it was just for a second, made me so happy, and I just experienced so much joy and excitement, and I was glued to the television while watching Goodfellas. It was such an incredible movie. I was shocked by how much I loved it. And then after that, we watched Saturday Night, which is the retelling, quote unquote, of the first 90 minutes before the first ever airing of Saturday Night Live. And it had people embodying all of the, like, I grew up on Saturday Night Live right out of the womb. Like, I attribute all of my humor and all of my joke abilities to Saturday Night Live. And like, I was already talking to Alex about how, like, this year I really wanted to try and take an improv class, and maybe it'll be my New Year's resolution to try and find something like that. But I just feel like now I've learned so much. I've watched so much Saturday Night Live. I've learned so much about improv and yes and just going with the flow and being in the moment and creating characters. Like, I want to do improv so much. So to just kind of watch this movie, it really brought a lot back from my childhood, and it made me so happy, and it just made me want to be on a stage. But speaking of Saturday Night Live, we, after that, watched a film called The Skeleton Twins, which had two of my later faves from Saturday Night Live, Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, in a more dramatic role. And like I said in my review, I feel like I had to experience all of the bad things in my life that I did experience in order to feel this movie the way that I did. And I laughed, I cried, I danced, I cheered. I loved it. It was so good to me. On the 27th, though, we watched the 2019 The Grudge. Andrea Riseborough, what are you doing in this film? You are too good for this film. This film was abysmal at best. I'm being so scared of the originals. This did nothing for me. This did absolutely not a single thing for me. On the 27th, we watched Rumors, which is a newer film. If you want a really good political satire starring my girlfriend Cate Blanchett, check this one out. And following that, we checked out a documentary called Witches, where a woman, pretty much these women, I am not a mother. I don't have a maternal bone in my body, but seeing these women, like what they went through after childbirth and feeling like postpartum depression and all of this stuff, and seeing the comparison to like the witch's plight through history, like it was really interesting to watch, but it's just not something that I feel like I could connect with. Okay, we are almost done. We're in the final like 9 films here. On the 28th, on Black Friday, we watched Black Friday, Devon Sawa, Bruce Campbell. You cannot go wrong. Also on the 28th, we finally like took all the movies down, rearranged, put all the new ones away, and while we did that, we were on Tubi, and there was a documentary called Boobs. We are boob people. We see boobs, we watch. Let me know. Are you my people? Anyways, so we watched this doc and it ended up being wild. It was only an hour long, but like honestly, the contents of it, like there were some situations where like husbands were forcing their wives into boob jobs and it was so icky. Oh my gosh. Anyways, followed that up with Stuart Gordon's King of the Ants, another film that I've had the physical media copy for some time. Haven't watched, but like I also said in my review, do not go into it thinking you're gonna get like Castle Freak, Reanimator, From Beyond. This is like his mafia mob style movie, and it was pretty decent. On the 28th, we watched XT Hair Extensions. And this movie, as someone who went to hairdressing school, I went to beauty school, I really enjoyed this film. I really enjoyed the threat being hair, and in such a disgusting way, one of my bigger fears in life came from hairdressing school, where you learn about hair slivers. Just go look it up. Go look up a hair sliver and how bad they can get. This movie gave me anxiety thinking about hair slivers. But I really enjoyed it. It was a pretty good J-horror. On the 29th, we watched Steve McQueen's Widows. And like I said in my review, Intercut Podcast kind of did a Steve McQueen bracket on their channel. And it really made me want to go back and watch movies that I've already seen by Steve McQueen and watch ones that I haven't. And I had not seen Widows, but we own it. It was shockingly good. And Daniel Kaluuya was so scary in this film. This is probably one of his best roles. Following that up, we watched Ju-on The Grudge 2. You guys have already heard in my last video how this movie was, last 2 videos ago, whatever, wherever I talked about Kayoko being birthed out of another human, that pissed me off, okay? I did not need to see that. I did not need to know that happened. I could have gone I will never financially recover from that. Anyways, on the 30th, we watched Frank Henenlotter's Brain Damage, and now that's a film that I like. That was just the right amount of stupid and grotesque, disgusting humor and sick horror, and I love Frank Henenlotter so much. I think today for our film fest, we're watching Bad Biology. Cannot wait. So moving on, we followed that up with Inseminoid, another 80s film that we just wanted to catch up on our, we gotta watch all the 80s horror films there are. It was not that great. But then we finished the month of November with Christopher Nolan's Insomnia, which had a very shocking role from Robin Williams. He was very good in this film. Alongside Al Pacino, I think they were a really great pairing. But that's it, folks. That's everything we watched in the month of November. I tried to keep this under a half an hour, and I'm like right there. So I'm gonna go prep for our film fest. I hope that you guys take time to at least check out a day or a movie with us, and I will see you guys so soon. You know.